Welcome to our Labor Day episode of For Pete's Sake. I'm Pete, joined alongside Ryan Gibbons.
I'm Gibby.
Producer Trev to my left here.
How you doing, boys?
Fellas, football is officially back.
It's back, baby. It's finally here.
Well, the start of college football this past weekend, and the NFL season officially opens this Thursday. Bears and Packers.
Got a little Thursday night action. I'm pumped for it. Like, it's going to be getting down that time where you got football on Saturday with college football, then football all day on Sunday with the NFL, and throwing a little Monday night, maybe even some Tuesday night maction. It's that time of year. It's the best time of year.
Yeah. Well, therefore, Gibbs, I say we dedicate this episode to the most popular sport in America, which is football. So to prepare for this season, I took a look at the entire schedule. So he's looked at every single game for every team in order to prepare my final standings predictions. It took a long time.
You got some in-depth analysis for us?
It took about 2 hours. It was a long session there.
I love the research.
But hopefully that allows the picks to be more accurate. You know, it's not some TV personality just saying that some team's going to win 12 games without even looking at the schedule. So, Gibbs, here are my predictions for this year, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about my standings.
Yeah, for sure. How do you want to, break these down? Just go by, division and division?
Yeah, we'll start with the AFC North. At 11-5, the winner of the division had the Pittsburgh Steelers. A lot of people think they're going to have a down year, but they have a pretty favorable schedule. The guys still trust Big Ben Roethlisberger. They've won the division so many times in the past 20 years.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, Tomlin, too. Great coach. He'll be able to get the boys ready. And James Conner in the backfield, too. Those are some solid options.
Yeah.
Plus, you have Cincinnati and Baltimore in that division. They're both kind of rebuilding. A lot of people are high on Cleveland, but they're still a bit of an unproven commodity at this point. So,
well, I had Cleveland. They also have a pretty good schedule. This entire division does. I had them at 11-5 as well, 3-3 in the division. I had them as a wild card team. And I actually had Baltimore at 10 wins. Again, the AFC North has a very favorable schedule this year. We'll see how Lamar Jackson does. It's a bit of a risky pick, but I had them at the final wild card spot at 10-6.
And I know Trevor was just saying that this division, Baltimore and Cincinnati are kind of rebuilding, but I think this is one of the toughest divisions
I agree.
In the NFL. You could say either the AFC North or NFC North, and I think talent-wise, Cleveland's probably the best team in this division, just because they have a lot of young guys. Why Pittsburgh is more of a question mark, and so the Ravens are also a question mark too. But I think the Ravens' defense, as well as having Lamar Jackson, I'm really high on Lamar Jackson. I think he just switches it up and is going to give defenses a hard time. Where I might throw the Ravens up at number 2 in this division. So I would have Cleveland at 1, Baltimore at 2, and then Pittsburgh at 3.
You got to respect the franchises of Pittsburgh and Baltimore. They've been so consistent in the past couple of years.
Yeah.
I'd probably have the same order for this division as Pete. I'm just nowhere near as high on Baltimore, namely because I don't believe in Lamar Jackson. I think he's a pretty one-dimensional quarterback.
That's a fair criticism, too. Like I said, I looked at the schedule. It looked pretty good. We'll see how it turns out. They also have Cincinnati in the division.
Mm-hmm.
I had them at the worst team in the NFL, 2-14.
Yeah,
the Red
there's
Rifle.
No surprise there.
Andy Dalton.
No, they're going to get beat around in that division this year.
So moving to the AFC South now. Of course, this is the division with the Indianapolis Colts. Andrew Luck just retired. Obviously, I had them dropping off quite a bit. Had them taking up the last spot in the division, still winning about 5 games. But I had winning the division the Houston Texans. Just made a couple big moves. Just got a good young left tackle.
This weekend.
I had them at 11-5. They should own this division, I think, this year.
Yeah, they're definitely the favorite. I think I would have the Colts at a couple more wins. I don't think having Luck is obviously going to hurt them, but I still think they have a lot of players. They got Mack out of the backfield, and they got Ebron, and they got Doyle too. So they have a couple options, as well as the Jaguars too. Fournette and having they got Big Dick Nick, right?
Yeah, of course.
I think he's going to open up the running lane for Fournette. Just having a quarterback, having an actual quarterback for the first time is going to give them a little better shot.
Yeah, no, he's competent, unlike Blake Bortles. He's not a great regular season quarterback, but Jacksonville's defense is still very strong, which is kind of what got them to, I believe, the AFC Championship game 2 years ago. So if they can ride off that and their offense will be okay, they'll be a threat in that division. Indianapolis, obviously, I'd say they were the favorite before Luck retired, but now there's such a question mark at quarterback that it's kind of hard to pick them.
I had Tennessee and Jacksonville taking both a little bit of a step back. They had about 6 or 7 wins. They have a very tough schedule, both teams this year. does the AFC South, and I just wasn't as high in the division as other ones.
Yeah, Tennessee is one of those teams that's just perpetually stuck between like 5-11 and 8-8. I feel like.
I agree. Moving on to the NFC or the AFC East, excuse me. Of course, you had the Patriots winning the
I
division.
was gonna say, do we even have to talk about this division?
Had them at 12-4, the number one seed in the AFC. Just an easier schedule. I don't really trust the division. Had the Jets having a better season though. Had about 8 wins.
I mean, they've made some nice moves in free agency, but they're not going to come close to New England.
And I had Buffalo at about 7 wins. Both, like I said, they're pretty good teams. Should be fighting for a wild card spot. I don't have either one making it. Then I had Miami, of course, at the bottom of the division because they're in full tank mode this year.
Yeah, I have no argument there. I mean, that division's it's always going to be New England.
Yeah, I mean, the real battle in that division is going to be for second between Buffalo and New York, but I mean, it doesn't really matter. It's New England all the way.
Moving out to the AFC West, I think an improved division. They have very tough schedules this year. I have Kansas City winning at 11-5. They're going to lose a couple more games than last year, still win the division. I actually had the Chargers only at 9 wins this year. They have a really tough schedule in the mid-season, and I think they're going to have to come back later on and not have them making the playoffs. I think they're going to have about 9 wins.
Not to mention, not having Gordon's going to hurt them too.
And that's one of those teams, like I said, on paper you think that they're going to be great until you actually look at the schedule and look at the teams they have to play, especially on the road. You can see them losing a lot of games. I was surprised and I had them at only 9 wins, but like I said, I looked through the entire schedule. That's what it came down to.
And you have them at 9 wins and not making the playoffs?
Just missing the playoffs. I had them missing out to Baltimore. And if that is flipped, I understand, but like I said, just based on the schedule.
Yeah, the Chargers seem to me to be a team that's maybe top 3 talent-wise in the AFC West. Or not, well, obviously AFC West, but the AFC. The problem is this is one of those franchises that just perpetually like underachieves year in, year out. And they've kind of wasted Phillip Rivers, in my opinion. He's a much better quarterback than that franchise deserves.
Had Oakland at 8 wins, actually. Maybe that's due to Hard Knocks watching, Antonio Brown.
Last season's coming out this week. Or last episode of this season's coming out.
Yeah, it is. So had them missing the playoffs, and then Denver at the bottom of the division, 5-11.
Come on.
But still, I mean,
Denver's Joe Flacco like that?
Denver's a very tough place to play. So they're going to win some games that you don't expect them to, especially at home.
Yeah. I think Oakland, regardless of how their season goes, they should be probably the most interesting team to watch from a neutral perspective this year.
I agree.
Yeah.
Not because of just the hard knocks, but just all the shenanigans that John Gruden's going to pull throughout the year. You got to look out for it.
That was a great choice for Hard Knocks this year. We were talking about that earlier on this year, when we saw the list of teams, we said Oakland's the obvious choice there.
I mean, even though the Lions were on it and we got the bias of being from Detroit, I would still.
It would just not be exciting. Oakland. The only reason I would be invested is because I'm a Lions fan.
See Patricia ride around that cart.
That's true. That would be like the one storyline.
So should we switch to the NFC now?
Yeah. Or do you want to talk about who you have winning the AFC first, or save that for the end?
Well, I'll go with that right now. It's a good idea, Gaby. Yeah. So the seeds that I had were number 1 seed New England. Number 2 actually had Houston. I had 3 teams tied 11-5, but based on the schedule, Houston got the first round bye there. I had Pittsburgh as a 3 seed, Kansas City as the 4 seed, and the wild cards were Cleveland and Baltimore.
Coming out of the AFC North. That's crazy. And then who would you have advancing?
Yeah, so I had Kansas City winning the wild card as well as Pittsburgh. Moving on to the divisional round, and that's where the Kansas City-New England matchup comes into play. I think most people would say one of those 2 teams is going to make it to the Super Bowl, so it just matters who wins that game. And I had New England at home. I want to pick Kansas City. I think Kansas City's more talented. I can see them winning. But until they do, I just can't pick against Tom Brady.
Yeah, you can't pick against New England. People want to do it every year, and even last year, people were saying like New England wasn't what they were used to be, and then they still beat the Chargers and Kansas City back to back. And I think you have to pick New England to come out of the AFC, even though if it's not really the exciting or cool pick.
Yeah. Plus, as good of a track record as Andy Reid has for like building teams, he really hasn't been able to win with some of the most talented teams recently we've seen in the league in the playoffs. Obviously, that Kansas City team last year and some of those Philadelphia teams from the mid-2000s as well.
It's a good point. I mean, Kansas City had the home field last year versus New England for the Super Bowl, and New England went in there and won. Then I had Houston advancing as well, beating Pittsburgh, and then I had New England beating Houston to go to the Super Bowl. I just don't trust Deshaun Watson enough to pick them there. But I think they're going to be much better this
Moving
year.
forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although I think if they don't win a playoff game this year, this might be the end of Bill O'Brien.
I can see that as well, especially
Yeah.
with the talented team that they have.
Yeah.
So the NFC now, starting with the NFC North, our home division here, guys.
I don't like where you put the Lions.
I had Minnesota winning the division at 11-5. They have a pretty good schedule. They made the NFC Championship 2 years ago. I think they're going to have a bounce back year this year. Pretty good offense, excellent defense. I see them win the division. Surprise pick here. I actually had Green Bay at 10-6. I don't think that they're better than Chicago, but they have a much easier schedule because they finished third in the division last year, where Chicago won the division. So when Chicago plays the other divisions, they have to play other division winners, which makes the schedule much more difficult than Green Bay's is. So I think Green Bay's a favorable schedule there. Like I said, I don't think that Chicago is necessarily worse than Green Bay, but I have Green Bay winning over them and claiming a wild card spot.
Honestly, that's the most Green Bay thing ever. They will just, like, talent-wise, they might even be the worst team in this division. They're kind of right there with us, I think, in terms of an overall squad. But they'll just take advantage of every other team being incompetent and somehow squeak in.
Yeah, and then just to like round out your standings here, you had the Lions at 8-8 as well.
I did. I had Bears and Lions both at 8 wins.
And I think this is one of the divisions that comes down to a lot of quarterback play. You have a lot of elite quarterbacks. I mean, and then you have Trubisky, and then, I mean Stafford and Cousins are kind of a toss up, but those guys are the pressure's on them this year, and there's gonna be some close games, and you got to get those guys to win you the games.
You could argue 4 top 15 quarterbacks in the NFL last year. So, like I said, I think it's a very tough division. They have tough schedules. I think 8 wins for the Lions. I think that's pretty reasonable to expect that. And we'll get into the Lions schedule right after this as well, more of a breakdown into that. So moving on to the NFC South now, I got the Saints at 12-4 winning. Great season last year, should have gone to the Super Bowl in a lot of people's eyes. I think they have a redemption year. Actually have the Atlanta Falcons having a good comeback. Remember, they made the Super Bowl about 3 years ago. I think they're going to have a good year, good schedule. They end up at 11-5 on my record here. Followed by the Carolina Panthers, have about 6 wins. Just don't trust Cam Newton in that health. And Tampa Bay seems like every year they're the sleeper pick that everyone picks, to go to the playoffs in a wild card spot, and they never do. I don't trust Jameis Winston. I don't think that they're going to have a great year, have them at 5 wins in the cellar of the division.
I think this is the last year you'll see Jameis Winston in Tampa, to
I
be
agree.
totally honest.
Possibly like on an NFL roster too.
I mean, he had enough promise coming out where I think someone will take a flyer on him, but he just really hasn't performed as the number 1 pick. This division's interesting to me, though, because I know you're not high on Carolina, and I'm really not either, but they're one of those teams I feel like that could just come out of nowhere.
Yeah, like they
and
did
be
in the Super Bowl run a couple years
Yeah.
ago.
I mean, I think it all comes down to if Cam Newton can stay healthy, and he's just had so many injury problems his entire career. But if he stays healthy, I can see them making the playoffs or making a playoff push for sure.
When he was healthy before, he was a top-tier quarterback, but I don't think you can call him that now with all the problems he's had the last few years.
Next up is the NFC East. I have Philadelphia winning the division. I think they have a great year. I have them as the number 1 seed, winning 13 games. I think Dallas is going to finish at 9-7 and just miss out in the playoffs. I know they won the division last year. Again, a tough division as a former division champ from last year. They have to verse number 1 seeds from other conferences, other divisions. I have the Giants at 5-11. I think they're going to start the season poor. I think you'll see Daniel Jones check in later
Let's
on in the year. I
go.
think they'll go on a little bit of a run. Then I have Washington at about 4 wins. I don't really see them being a big threat in this division.
I think you nailed that one spot on. Like, I don't really see the Giants or Washington doing anything special, and Dallas is always one of those fringe playoff teams. And even if they do get Zeke back, which things look like he might be getting a contract done before week 1, I don't necessarily see them being a serious playoff contender.
Yeah, unless Wentz has another injury like he had a few years ago, I don't really see anyone other than Philly coming out of this division. Dallas could be lower than people think, though, in my opinion.
Well, Dallas also versus Green Bay this year, and I had Green Bay beating out Dallas by 1 game, so that could be a big game later on in the schedule, so pay attention to that. The final division is the NFC West. I think the Rams are clearly the best team, have them at 12-4 this year, winning the division. I think Seattle will be about 9-7. They always seem to be about that 9 or 10 win team, but I have them missing out by a game to the playoffs. I think San Francisco will be better, having about 6 wins. And a lot of people think that they could be much improved this year. I don't think they'll be that much improved, but I can see 6 wins there. Then Arizona, you'll know what to expect there. Had them about 2 wins, 2-14, with Kyler Murray as the top quarterback.
Yeah,
there.
I mean, I could see Kyler Murray being a good quarterback down the line, but their team is just such a mess right now. They don't have an offensive line. I would have them being down as one of the worst teams in the NFL right now too. And I think San Francisco is going to be a fun team to watch. Having Jimmy G back, I think their offense is pretty legit.
Yes.
They don't really have a defense right now, but they're a fun team to watch.
No, Seattle to me is one of those teams that if they do manage to get into the playoffs, they could be dangerous with all the experience they have.
Yep.
They obviously just got Jadeveon Clowney too.
They did. Big trade there this weekend.
Yeah, so that's a big boost to their defensive line. And, Pete Carroll knows what he's doing on defense especially, and he'll have them ready to play. But they're not going to touch the Rams over the season.
So to recap, I had Philadelphia as the number 1 seed, had the Rams as the number 2 seed, so those two teams earned first-round byes. Had the Saints as the 3 seed, Minnesota as the 4 seed, and the wild card teams Atlanta and Green Bay. So what the playoffs looked like then, I had Minnesota and New Orleans both advancing as the home teams in the wild card round. The divisional rounds, that's an interesting matchup of the Rams versus the Saints. A recap from last year.
Ooh,
this
we
time
go.
it's in LA. I think this is the Saints here. I have the Saints going into
Little
Los
revenge.
Angeles. I don't think LA has a great home field advantage. I think there's a lot of Saints fans just around the country. I think the Saints can win that game. I also had Philadelphia advancing over Minnesota at home. Then I have the Saints going to Philadelphia and winning that game, advancing to the Super Bowl. Like I said, I think this is their year. So the Super Bowl matchup is the Patriots versus the Saints. This is another one. I want to pick the Saints. First off, the NFL would love to see Breeze versus Brady for the Super Bowl. That would be huge for them. And I think New England still wins this game. Like I said, I want to pick the Saints to win, but I will not pick against Tom Brady until I see it. And Bill Belichick, I think the Patriots win that game. Close game. I think they end up as another Super Bowl champ.
I mean, it's the boring pick, but like, what else makes sense?
Yeah,
Exactly.
Plus, the only thing we've seen as the Patriots' kryptonite is really teams coming from the NFC East.
That's
and
true.
Unfortunately for the Saints, they're in the NFC South. So,
Excellent analysis there, Trev.
of course.
So that's the NFL season predictions. I hope you guys appreciated that.
Yeah, only 3 more days. We can start seeing how these turn out.
Well, should we do a deeper dive into the Lions schedule now?
Yeah, let's do it.
Or do we want to have Gibby and I give our Super Bowl?
Oh yeah,
predictions
for
Okay,
sure.
yeah.
What do you guys,
Yeah,
what
let's
do you guys
swing it.
thoughts there on Super Bowl picks?
I mean, just to switch it up, I was going to say New England too, but I would say the Chiefs. Just
Go for
to
it.
change it up, make it a little interesting. So let's go Chiefs over the Eagles.
Oh, that's a good matchup. Wentz versus Mahomes there.
Yeah, I mean, I think just there's so many weapons that Kansas City has. Their offense is, I mean, they put up a ton of points, and it would just be a fun game to watch. Just a
I
couple
agree.
gunslingers.
A good little refresher game there instead of seeing the same teams
Yeah.
over and over again. What do you think, Trev? On your thoughts there?
Well, I'm looking at your playoff bracket here, and there's really only 2 teams I disagree with, and it's both of your 6 seeds. I would probably throw the Chargers in over Baltimore and maybe Seattle over Green Bay. Don't see either of them doing anything in the playoffs, but
Just a little switch there.
Yeah, of
Which could
course.
very well happen.
yeah, no, those borderline teams are all very close, and a lot of it could come down to who gets injured and whatnot. But for the Super Bowl, it's really hard to bet against anyone other than New England coming out of the AFC. Like I said, I don't trust Andy Reid in big games. And regardless of when they play Kansas City, I think they'll take care of them. NFC is a bit more wide open. There's really... I think your top 3 seeds are all really, really close. So you got New Orleans, Philadelphia, and LA. Teams from the NFC don't seem to repeat going to the Super Bowl for whatever reason.
Good changeover in that conference.
Yeah, so I don't see LA coming back. This Eagles-Saints game, I hope it happens.
I love to
Because
see it.
that could be an all-time classic, assuming Breeze and Wentz are healthy. I think it'll be a shootout, and I think Philadelphia will just about edge it if it happens. But like I said, that's really close, which again leads to New England-Philadelphia rematch from 2 years ago. But Philadelphia this time, there's no Big Dick Nick. So I got Brady just getting his revenge on Philadelphia in the Super Bowl.
So we got 2 votes Patriots, 1 vote for the Chiefs there. Good recap. We'll see what happens this year, gentlemen.
I think the Patriots and Chiefs are probably the two best teams in the league.
Yeah.
And it's just unfortunate that they're both in the AFC.
Well, moving on, should we move to the Lions schedule now?
Of course.
So they open up this week versus the Cardinals at the Cardinals. And I will say the first 4 games of the Lions schedule is rough. They go at Arizona.
It's brutal.
And for Lions fans, they know the Arizona Cardinals, for some reason, seem to be our kryptonite over the past couple of years. We always seem to lose that game, especially in Arizona.
It's so weird. We would lose to teams like that, and then we would, like last year, we lost our season openers to the Jets.
But that game, it's not a must-win, obviously, because I hate when people use that term for the first game of the season. But they should win that game.
All games were must-wins.
That's exactly. They should win that game because the next couple of games are hosting the Chargers,
Brutal.
at the Eagles, and hosting the Chiefs. If the Lions go maybe 1-3 or 2-2 possibly in those games, that would be a success.
Not to mention, we play the Packers and Vikings the 2 games out. So our first 6 games, we would play the Packers and Vikings right after the Chiefs. So that's 6 really tough games to like start out the season.
I think that they will beat the Cardinals week 1.
They have to.
I would like to see them beat the Chargers. I think I had them beating the Chargers just because Melvin Gordon won't be there. They're at home. The Chargers seem to lose games like that also. Another one of those teams that plays good against the best teams, but also will drop 1 or 2 games that they shouldn't throughout the season. I had us losing to the Eagles and then to the Chiefs, so 2-2 to open up the schedule. After that, they go at the Packers. I think they'll lose at Green Bay. I just don't trust the Lions enough there. Then hosting the Vikings, they could very well lose that game too. They could be 2-4 to open up the schedule or open up the season.
They got to come out of that at least 3-3.
I don't
to be like serious contender to be able to make a playoff push.
Well, let's say they go 3-3. There, give you like your predictions there. Middle of the season, they host the Giants. They should beat the Giants, either Eli or Daniel Jones. They should win that game. Then they go at the Raiders. Fun game to watch. Think they can win that game? Think they go at Oakland and win?
It all depends on where Oakland's at mentally. If that team is imploded from the inside, this could be. I very rarely say this with the Lions because this almost always backfires. But if Oakland has like self-destructed at that point, that could be like a huge blowout win for the Lions.
I wouldn't count on it.
I wouldn't either, but Oakland has the potential to just, more than any other team, to just fall apart at any point.
I mean, we've had that problem in the past too, but...
Well, let's say through the first 8 games, let's say 4-4. Does that sound about right? So they're about 500 through the first 4 games. Then they go at the Bears. I don't think they're going to win at Chicago. They seem to struggle there ever since that Calvin Johnson rule came into effect there. That was disallowed touchdown. Ooh. Then they host the Cowboys. I think they can beat the Cowboys at home. They usually play pretty well against Dallas. This year they have them at home. Usually have a pretty good record against Dallas, so I think they can win that game. That would take them to 5-5. After that, they go at the Redskins.
Is that the Thanksgiving game?
It's right before. It's a Sunday right before. They should be able to beat the Redskins. I would expect them to. Whether or not they will, we'll see. It seems like a winnable game, but the Lions, they seem to never win those winnable games. The Thanksgiving game this year is the Lions hosting the Bears. Was that last year as well? Did they host the Bears last year? I think so, because then they have, was it Chase Daniels that checked into the game as quarterback and just absolutely destroyed us?
It's always good, like playing a divisional rival on Thanksgiving. It just makes it a little more exciting to watch.
Yeah, more exciting to watch us lose year in, year out.
Typically, yeah.
So say we split those games, say 6-6. They very well could be, 7-5 team. I could also see them being like a 4-8 team or 5-7 team because they're just not consistent. We don't really know what to expect this year. They go at the Vikings. I think they'll lose that game. They host the Buccaneers. They should beat Jameis Winston. I think they should win that game. Then they end on the season going at Denver. Like we mentioned earlier, Denver is a very tough place to play. I don't think that they'll win that game, especially at the end of the year. Got some snow involved. We're an indoor team. I know we're northern, but I think
that would be a
game.
tough loss too, right at the end of the season.
Yeah.
I mean, if they might be out of the playoff race by that point too. Which, if they are they really going to be motivated to play in like mile high weather? That's
you're not playing for anything.
Below freezing. Yeah, no.
Final game is the Lions host the Packers. So I had us in our standings. I had the Lions going 2-4 in the division, but outside of the division, I had them going 6-4. That just speaks to how tough our division is.
That's what I was going to say. Like our division those division games are going to be really, really tough. Not to mention we have some really tough games outside outside of our division too to start off the season.
Yeah, reversing the AFC West. That means Kansas City, Chargers, Oakland, all tough teams. And then, like I said, Denver at the end of the year, going at Denver, could very well lose that game. So it has that 8-8.
I'm nowhere near as optimistic on these guys as you are. I got to say, I think we're probably a 5-11 football team.
I could see it. Like I said, the
Yeah.
tough division, if they lose all those games to AFC West opponents, which they very well could, they could end up at 5 or 6 wins.
Well, what I have them beating Arizona, Oakland, Tampa, and then going 1-5 in the division. My big shock of the year, though, this will give us a barrage, I guess, of false hope at the beginning of the year.
A barrage.
I don't even know if that's the right word, but it would be the most Lions thing ever if they somehow beat Kansas City,
That's true.
which honestly, I could see them for whatever reason just showing up in that game.
For some reason, like last year they beat the Patriots. Like
Yeah.
they do pull off these wins sometimes.
Because we know we're not doing anything in the playoffs, so when we get the chance to play these teams, this is our Super Bowl.
Well, that's why I didn't have us beating the Chiefs, but I had us beating the Chargers. And I was kind of thinking about a same line there. That is a big game. I think the Lions could win that one.
Yeah, I could also see us winning in Lambeau for some reason,
Yeah.
for similar reasons.
Then losing at the end of the year at home to the Packers.
Yep.
For a big game.
I mean, I say this every year, but like it does feel a little different. Like this team does feel a little different than teams in the past.
Well, I heard someone talking about this morning, and they said the best thing about football is that you can always, bring up that hope for your team. Like, you know what? If we have a good year looking at our schedule, I could see us making the playoffs, doing a little run there, except for Miami fans because they're tanking. But that's the one thing about football is you always think your team could have a chance. It's a little harder for Lions fans because we've never actually seen it, but you can have that thought.
I think you'll get a good feel for it come week 3 or 4. Like once we play the Chargers, Eagles, and Chiefs back to back, you can see how we stack up against the best teams.
Like I said, if they lose at Arizona first game of the
Season's
season,
over.
they could very well be 0-4.
The season's done.
First 4 games.
Also, just from personal experience here, I don't think any team that's tried to be a Patriots imitator has worked out because you're missing the 3 main components: Robert Kraft, Tom Brady, Bill Belichick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of them. Tennessee's another one that's very
Tennessee,
similar.
Miami.
Yep. Bill O'Brien was the offensive coordinator for the Texans. He's probably the most successful person that's come out of Bill Belichick's system, I would think, in terms of teams.
Well, Houston's had the best front office to go along with it, and you could argue that they've underachieved the last 3 or 4 years with the talent they have.
They've had great players, J.J. Watt, DeAndre Hopkins, so it's an interesting thing you bring up there, Trev. I mean, we have the GM that was from the Patriots. He was a scout there. Have the head coach from the Patriots. And like I said, a number of our players, Trey Flowers, hopefully, he plays well this year, but not as much hope as I think I'd like to see this year.
I mean, I'm still optimistic. I think we've improved since last year. Granted, like our division did get a lot tougher, but I think we're going to have a better team this year than we did last year.
I don't see how you can say that. This is the Detroit Lions. How they've earned anyone's optimism in this town, I will never understand.
I'm with you, Gibby. I'm optimistic.
There it is.
Well, the best part about the NFL coming back, we were talking about this the other day, Gibby, is that fantasy football is officially back. Something to do on the weekends, on Sunday, Monday, Thursday, even as well for the games. It's just a fun time for everyone involved there. Get to watch your players play. Even people that don't really like the NFL still play fantasy football. We have a friend that does that.
It just makes watching the games a little more exciting.
It does.
Especially like when it comes down to that like Sunday night or like Monday night action where you have like 1 or 2 players left to go.
Exactly.
I mean, for me, it's the only reason I watch football now.
And I don't think that's a crazy thought there. I think for a lot of people it kind of is. They have a similar thing. They're not big NFL fans, but they'll play fantasy football and they'll see how their players do.
Yeah, no, dude, I'm pumped. I got to set the lineup, get things ready for this week.
A little nervous because the Chiefs just signed LaShawn McCoy.
That hurts you?
I had the Chiefs starting running back Damian Williams, but I'm a little nervous now. Just took a little bit of a hit there.
Are you going to give him the start?
I think so. You got to roll with it week 1. I don't think McCoy will be ready week 1. He just got signed. True. I'm going to roll with it for week 1 there.
Yeah, OJ was a little excited too. He's been going off all week on Twitter talking about fantasy football, throwing some advice out there. So that's our little...
Still talking about Andrew Luck?
Nah, he's more talking about like Gordon and Zeke and going through things over there and just throwing out his advice. And it's just kind of weekly update on OJ Simpson's Twitter account.
Honestly, if he was still talking about Andrew Luck at this point, we would have needed to increase the police presence around the country for everyone's safety.
Andrew Luck seems like the nicest dude too. Just you hear him talk.
He's just a good guy.
Seems like a nice guy.
Well, I get a little hypothetical for you.
Bring it
now that the dust has settled, and
Well,
it still might be a little early to bring this up, but do you think Luck will come back?
Well,
Is there a chance?
I think you could see him, not this year. I heard that there's no chance he comes back this year. Maybe in a year or two down the road if he misses football.
Once he gets healthy.
Yeah, because he's obviously not feeling great right now with all the injuries that are involved. Trev, one of the things that Gibby and I were talking about before the show, the two players that were most notable that retired this offseason were Andrew Luck and Rob Gronkowski. Both have been rumored to come back, as Gibby says. Which one do you see coming back? Which is more likely, in your opinion, that you could see come back earlier or sooner?
Gronk, I think, is done.
You think Gronk's done?
I don't think he's coming back. He's got too much, other He has too many other business interests.
Happens to everyone.
It really does. It was a real tongue
Yeah, that's
twister.
true. I think I saw some videos and stuff on social media talking about how he just didn't have a love for it anymore, and that's why he kind of stepped away.
He seems happy with all the beer cruises and stuff that he's doing.
Yeah, he's having a good time.
I'd love to go on a Gronk party cruise. There.
I don't know if I could handle it. My body would just not be able to go through what Gronk does to his body.
Yeah. Luck, I mean, we'll see what he does now that he's retired too. But say his body does feel better 2 years from now, or whenever his contract's up with the Colts, essentially, or when it would have run out, because that's when he'll be a free agent when he comes back.
Well, and the quarterback position is obviously going to take less hits than a tight end. That's part of the reason why Gronk retired, is the hits that he took over the years.
As long as you're not playing for the Colts.
Exactly. I think you could see Gronk come back. I think it comes back later on this season. Patriots are maybe going a 2-game losing streak. You see Tommy call up Gronk, say, "Hey man,
Yeah, someone gets injured or
need
something
you for the
like that.
playoffs." Week 12, week 11, something like that. Gets the call. Gronk comes back right in time for the playoffs. I could see it happening.
Him and Brady go out together.
He did leave the door open in that interview when he was saying,
I could see it happening.
I could see it happening. Part of me wants to see both guys stay retired just because they've had great
It's a
careers.
whole drama thing.
Yeah.
You don't want it to end.
They've had a lot of injuries as well. It's you don't need to come back.
Yeah, you never know what'll happen on the field too when you come back.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Well,
Especially after those beer cruises.
Of course.
that's our NFL kind of prediction segment there, gentlemen. Hopefully it'll be a great season. Good luck in fantasy football to both of you.
Of course.
Yeah,
That
but
kicks off
I
next week.
don't mean it.
Well, the other football that happened, like I said, the past weekend was MSU and Michigan games. MSU beats Tulsa 28-7.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big win for State there. Then I was not as confident in the offense watching it, though. I thought it was going to look better, especially after the opening drive.
Yeah, I was going to say we pretty much got what we expected for the MSU game with that victory over Tulsa. In no surprise, MSU's defense was dominant. They put on a crazy display. They scored a couple defensive touchdowns. We're always getting to the ball.
Is it Kenny Willekes? Is that his name?
Yeah,
he looked
won.
Great.
He won Defensive Player of the Week for all of college football last week. He just went off. It was good to see him back too, coming off. I think he broke his ankle or broke his foot.
Yeah, he had an
a pretty
injury in the bowl
serious
game
injury.
last year.
Which that was part of the reason I imagine he came back, because he was eligible to go pro last year. Come off the injury, probably want to rehab with State. Come back, hopefully win some more games for us. He looked, like I said, fantastic.
Yeah, total beast out there. Our defense it's just going to be really fun to watch all year.
We're a typical Big Ten team. We have a great defense, but our offense, people say we have a new offensive coordinator. Really, all we've done is D'Antonio's pointed to our coaches we already had and said, okay, you stand there now, you stand there.
Yeah,
Shuffled it around.
I wasn't
Yeah.
super impressed with the play calling either. We were running the tight end in motion. We did that all last year, and I wanted to see something new, something different. And
I didn't see as many jet sweeps.
yeah,
this
we
year.
didn't
thought
run
to
a
say
jet
that.
sweep, but still, it's only the first game. Who knows how much of their offense they even want to show against a team like Tulsa? So
Yeah. Tulsa were also one of the most undisciplined teams I've ever seen. They had so many penalties in the first 5 minutes. It was wild.
Well, Tulsa also, they said this during the broadcast, had the number 6 rated pass defense last year as well. So if you're looking for more positives for Michigan State, they versed a tough pass defense. Of course, that's probably against worse opponents.
yeah, who knows?
Just trying to spin it more positively.
At the end of the day, Lewerke looked okay. he had a lot of the receivers had some drop. They had a lot of drop balls, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But he looked all right, not good, but like not terrible either.
He's not going to be what he was 2 years ago again, I don't think. Just from how much he's been hit the last few years and really the injury, no. I just don't think he's going to be the same
I hope we see
quarterback.
some of that, but I don't think you can hope to see him return to what he was. But I mean, as long as we have a decent offense, this team is gonna be good, and they're gonna contend for the Big Ten.
I think he's still a much better option than if we threw like Lombardi in there.
The blonde hair, man.
Yeah. I mean, he got some looks. He got us a first down at one point.
It's like
run the Wildcat.
Yeah. I was also disappointed in our offensive line and our running game, but I mean, I guess those kind of go hand in hand.
You expect the offensive line to play better, especially against a team like Tulsa. I thought they'd have well over 150, 200 rushing yards. We probably just broke about 100. I think the work he was probably the leading rusher.
No one could run the ball. Hayward was back there. I think he got the most carries out of anyone, and he averaged like 2.5 yards per carry. And
not impressive.
We were trying to run the ball at the end of the game, and it does make me a little nervous. We can't run the ball against a team like Tulsa.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think we're going to miss L.J. Scott this year, too. We don't have a direct replacement that's going to sort of make up for the production he brought.
Well, next game, I believe, is versus Arizona State at home.
I think
is it ASU?
I think it's Western.
We play one of the directional schools.
I think we play Western this week, and they actually went off last weekend. We do. They beat Mammoth.
First Western first.
Yep.
Well, I expect them to beat Western. If they can't beat Western at home, I think they should win that game.
No, like I was saying, Western went off last weekend. They beat Monmouth College 48-13.
The lowly Mammoth.
Something like that, I guess. And their quarterback threw for over 300 yards and 5 touchdowns for Western. So it'll be something to see our defense get at least a little more of a test than a team like Tulsa.
Ice Age.
I mean, Monmouth is an FCS school, so I'm going to take that score with a sort of pinch of salt. But
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, hopefully they defeat Western Michigan next weekend, and a big matchup versus Arizona State. Jumping over to the Michigan schedule, they beat Middle Tennessee State, a name that Michigan State fans unfortunately know for a couple of years ago in basketball. But they beat Mid Tennessee State 40-21. Didn't look, I don't think, overly impressive.
It was kind of the same deal with MSU. Like a win's a win, but they didn't blow me away with anything.
I was a little bit surprised because usually Michigan dominates those teams that they should dominate. So I was a little surprised they didn't dominate as much. It was a little closer in the second quarter than I think Michigan fans would have liked. But at the end of the day, they got the win and still put up 40 points.
I think for them, more than State, you could very clearly see the defense was the strong point and the offense is where a lot of the problems are. Don't get me wrong, I still think it's sort of the same way for Michigan too, but I think it's a little more towards the middle. I think their defense still has more room to improve, but their offense is a little further along. You also have to keep in mind they changed offensive systems in between years, so they're still bedding that in.
Well, Michigan lost a couple of really good defensive players. I know Bush was the middle linebacker. I think Gary also went pro. Yeah. So they're two big names, two top 15 picks that they lost this year.
Yeah, no, they're replacing a lot of guys on defense. And like I said, I think they have suitable replacements for a good season in the Big Ten, but it's going to take time to bed them into the system.
That's true. One of the things that actually stuck out for me as a pro for Michigan's defense was that number 2 corner position. Vincent Gray, former Rochester Adams standout, got the start at corner. And they tested him. I mean, they knew he was a young guy, and they threw some balls his way, and he did a really good job and played well.
Well, I'll give Vincent credit. He was the offers he was getting coming out of high school. He had some from like lower Big Ten schools that he would have started as a freshman, but he's like, I want to go to Michigan. I want to fight for my place, and here he is out playing.
It was exciting to see them announced from Rochester Hills there when he came up on the screen. I immediately looked him up to make sure he went to Adams.
I was surprised he got a start. Like I was kind of blown away. I think he got redshirted last year, and just to see him already be a starter his sophomore year is pretty crazy.
For pretty good defense too. So
he's going to play much more than Mitchell Sokol will for Michigan State this year.
We'll get there, man.
Yeah.
Michigan's next game is versus Army at home. Gibby and I were talking before. We didn't think Army looked very impressive in their first win.
Against
still running that triple.
I think
option.
They played Rice. Yeah, they didn't look that good. I mean, they won, but I thought they just have a bunch of returning guys. They played really well last year. They took Oklahoma, all the way to the end of the game, and I thought they were going to be more impressive and kind of be a trick game for Michigan. But I mean, I guess we'll see what happens this weekend.
They won 14-7 versus Rice, which is not overly impressive.
I mean, that's some classic triple option footballs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure Rice was necessarily an impressive team in Conference USA either. So we'll see.
Both winnable matchups, I think, for both Michigan teams this year. I know we talked about that last week. We think they should both have pretty good seasons.
Just kind of another test.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah, Michigan also has a test coming up after this game. They have a bye, but then they go straight into Wisconsin.
Got to win the bye week. Oh, that's an early game.
Yeah, that's their Big Ten
early
opener.
Big Ten.
Yeah.
I honestly, like, this weekend I was most impressed with OSU and Wisconsin. And in terms of Big Ten games, Justin Fields and Jonathan Taylor both looked legit.
Wisconsin played terrific, especially on the road.
Yeah, I know it's only 1 week, but I think they're the clear favorite in the West now for the Big Ten. I don't see Northwestern repeating what they did last year. So,
well, I think that's all the football coverage we had for this week. As the season gets going, like I said, NFL officially starts this week. Our next couple episodes, we'll do a breakdown of what we saw, particularly from the Lions, as well as Michigan State football. I'm excited to get going here. Excited to get the seasons underway.
Yeah, you got all those vacations taken care of and ready to get into it.
Exactly.
of course.
Well, that's all we had for you guys this week. I'm Pete.
I'm Gibby.
And I'm Trev. Until next time.
Signing off.
Peace.